everyone, and welcome to another edition of Turf Republic Turf Talks. Jumpstart your turf for 2014. And a lot of us were very fortunate to get a big miss last night of this storm coming up the East Coast. We've seen on Twitter and other social media channels, some of us did get hit. So, we're hoping that melts pretty quick. We know this weekend temperature's supposed to warm, and with higher sun angles, hopefully that melts pretty quick for us. But we have a great talk lined up for you today, and I'd like to introduce our three guests. First, we have Dr. Cale Bigelow from Purdue University. We have Adam Moeller, USGA agronomist from the Northeast region. And we have Joel Simmons, president of Earthworks. And before we get started this morning, I'd just like to take a moment to thank our sponsor this morning, GenNext Biotech, and I'll give a quick message from GenNext. For a quick and complete healing from all winter damage, use the GenNext Biotech products with their key complex of natural organic ingredients, microbial byproducts, organic hormones, extracts, and enzyme complexes maximize plant function and build a stronger, denser turf. It's this combination of catalytic enzymes and the proper balance of nutrients that allow the GenNext products to outperform the competition. So you can follow them at GenNext_biotech or at GenNext Complete. Thank you to Tim Brink and Tim Flegel. So we'll get started this morning, and we kind of have this set up as a panel discussion for our three guests, and we wanted to talk about getting the turf going. You know, regardless of the type of winter you have, whether you've got no snow or 50 feet of snow, there's certain processes that need to take place each spring so that we're ready for the growing season. So that's what we wanted to talk about this morning. So I guess, guys, we'll start off with cultural practices. And, Adam, I don't know if you want to start, and then we'll move from there. But, what are your thoughts on some things from a cultural practice standpoint, turf managers should look to do to get things going?
Sure. Well, first of all, good morning to everyone. I think what we're seeing so far in the Northeast is a fair amount of, concern, and definitely there's been reports of pretty severe damage already. But the verdict's still out as to just how bad things are going to be. So hopefully things just green up like they should, and things aren't too badly. But definitely, given the severity of the winter, I would think the number one thing that most people should be thinking about is if they don't have damage, they should keep in mind their turf is extremely weak, much more weak than in years past, most likely, especially if it's been under snow and ice cover for so long. So one of the first things we recommend is to do a fair amount of work to get the irrigation system up and ready to go as soon as you can, because that turf, oftentimes it might look good once the snow's gone and a cold snap, some dry weather, and that could really push it over the edge. So we always promote trying to keep things dry in the spring to push roots, but at this point a little bit too dry of a condition could really set things over the edge. So that's really the first step that I think is to try to get things, to make sure you're ready to go, and to not let things get too dry right away when once the snow and the ice clear.
You still there?
Nope, I can't hear.
I hear you, Mr. Miller.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
There we go.
Cal, we'll jump in about cultural practices, some things we want to do to get things up and going.
I think that what Adam said is really important, and I think this is something that people are going to have to be thinking all the way over the next 90 days. Is the turf is really, really weak now, and it's not suddenly just going to turn around in 30 days. They're going to have to be very, very careful as far as excess traffic. Like you said, it's going to get warmer here real quick, and people are going to want to get out to these golf courses that have been closed, and that traffic, extra mowing, trying to push things, I think is going to be very, very, very tempting. And the extra mowings and aggressive fertilization is probably something that I would be backing away from. The grass is going to green up on its own, and my biggest concern is some people are going to get a little crazy with some nitrogen rates, trying to get these things back to where they should be, and that's going to bite them down the road when we get to June or July if they're not careful, especially if they're not using the right nitrogen sources.
Right. Joel, your thoughts?
I would agree with everybody, and good morning, everyone. Obviously, one of the most important things right now is to get some oxygen going through those soils. Mm-hmm. And as Adam said, getting that irrigation system up and running. one of the things that we've seen a lot of recently in soil tests coming across our desk is a lot of sodium and a lot of bicarbonate buildup in that soil profile, and that needs to be flushed out over the next couple of months. And clearly the irrigation system's driving force behind that. But getting that irrigation system up when it's appropriate to get it up. And as Dr. Bigelow said, don't over-apply too much nitrogen. Don't overreact. Less is more. You didn't get into details on nitrogen, but I'm a fan of ammonium sulfate in the spring because it'll actually warm up a cold soil. But key thing is, don't overdo anything. Don't overreact. Let Mother Nature do her thing. I think one of the things we're going to see with this very extended winter, at least here in the Northeast, is that spring's going to come on fast and furious, and we're probably going to jump spring into summer. So I think you're going to be where you want to be very quickly. So small but steady steps. Don't go crazy. But aerification is going to be key. Getting oxygen into that soil, venting, spiking. Obviously, the core aerification is on the forefront right now, but air is going to be king in these soils for a while.
Now, Adam, you had mentioned you're seeing turf systems a bit weaker than normal given the winters we've seen. But we do need to hit it hard with cultural practices. Is there any recommendations you're making? Should people get things moving first before aerating? Is there maybe thoughts on changing tine sizes or maybe tining versus coring? What are your thoughts?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, I'm a huge proponent, and it's much easier to say from where I'm sitting as an agronomist as opposed to a superintendent, but aerify at the appropriate time for the turf, not what's appropriate for the revenue stream. Again, much easier said than done, but I think in a year like this where the whole calendar has to be pushed back based on the weather, that's got to be something that the superintendents are taking into consideration. Most people that I visit, most courses that I work with, try to do some sort of a spring core aeration. But if things are that weak and fragile, you're better off to still do something, but not go over aggressive with it, unless you're trying to recover from some sort of ice damage, things like that, where you need to get a little bit more into the soil. So I wouldn't delay anything too far off into the spring. I would agree with Joel. I think once spring hits, it's going to be here. But at the same time, just because your aeration date, maybe has come and gone, I wouldn't skip it. It's just try to, push it back to something that's more appropriate, in mid to late April if possible. If your only option is to do some sort of solid tining, I'm a big fan of a deep tine aeration, something along those lines that's, non-invasive when it comes to the putting surface, but also really helps drive some roots, because that's really what's most important, is to try to get a root system that's going to be strong enough to work through the summer stress.
Joel or Cale, any thoughts on that?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well,
Cale, you're muted.
Go ahead, Cale. Well, I'll jump in.
Go ahead.
Okay. I would agree again with Adam. I mean, I think as I said earlier, oxygen is going to be king for the next 6-8 weeks. And quite honestly, if you can't core, at least try to do something. Get a quad tine in there. Even if it's something as simple as a Sand Pro spiker, just to crack that surface. Because what we're seeing here is a lot of that surface being sealed. And again, as I said before, I'm seeing a tremendous amount of bicarbonates and soil tests coming across our desk. And what that's going to do is seal that very top half inch. And by just simply cracking that, if that's all you can do, I'm not suggesting not to get in there with a core airifier if that's on the schedule and it's feasible, but at least get that surface cracked, get some gas exchange, get some oxygen in, break that bicarbonate seal. What we're really trying to do here is let that biology breathe, and we got to get that system working. And it's been jammed up for the last 4 or 5 months now. And that's again, it's all about oxygen.
Right, Cale?
Yeah, one of the things, I think Adam touched a little bit on it. A lot of people, they've had their traditional calendar in place. Oftentimes they might do a hollow tine this time of the year. I mean, I have heard some people, because there's so much moisture in the soil, when they're bringing these cores up to the surface and trying to deal with them as they typically do, they're getting a lot of smearing and everything else that's covering up some of the leaf blades. It goes back to some of the things that Adam had also said about getting the irrigation system up and running in case you have to clean some things off. But clearly, what we typically do at this time of the year needs to be carefully examined, and trying to avoid those unintended consequences.
Right. Very good.
Solid tine. Open it up.
Well, and that's what there's kind of, I guess in the Northeast, maybe pushing into the Midwest a little bit. There's kind of two schools of thought here. I was always of the thought, as soon as it thawed, we were out coring. I mean, and some winters it was, you get back from GIS and you were pulling cores in February. And then there's we have in our area men's leagues. I'm sure most associations have those. So some superintendents would wait, get the turf moving, and then get things opened up. Any changes to that at all, you think, this year, or just kind of see how the turf is and see how it's responding?
Adam and I talked the other day very briefly about, maybe some people feel like it's too wet to get a piece of equipment on these greens. What would be the disadvantages of possibly just doing the top dressing instead? And I think anything that's going to improve gas exchange, things that are going to improve surface firmness, are things that folks need to be looking at.